welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Thursday, y'all. I hope you guys are doing well. Today we're going to be talking all about the conjunction between Chiron and the North Node in Aries. I'm calling this video The Courage to Heal. If you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, click that bell button below. You'll be subscribed to my channel and you will be alerted as to when I have new content coming out on YouTube. But we're here almost every other day, bringing you guys the news with what's going on in the cosmos. We have horoscopes, new and full moon reports, eclipse stuff, retrogrades, and so much more. So thank you guys for your support, for your likes, comments, shares. Leave me your comments below. Let me know what you guys think. I'm really excited to do this video. I'm kind of fired up about it. I've been talking a lot about the North Node conjunct Chiron, so I might plug some of the other videos that I've done in the description below. I did do a video on this like months ago, and I know it's gotten a substantial amount of views, but I know that people are asking about the current situation right now in the world with this conjunction. So I'm going to talk to you guys about what it means, how it's affecting the 12 signs, and I'm also going to discuss how I'm seeing this conjunction playing out in the world. But if you guys don't know, now you know. The North Node and Chiron are coming into conjunction. We're going to be seeing this actually on February 19th. So I'm a little bit early, but to be honest with you, it has just been a nonstop ride since we saw the nodes enter into Aries. If you guys remember, spring of 2023, we saw a 29-degree solar eclipse in Aries, followed by a pretty intense several-month-long Pluto square the node. So we've been kind of feeling a lot of nodal action. This is a particular conjunction that's really going to roll for some time. So I'm going to show you guys some of the other aspects in regards to this particular conjunction and how it will unfold really through the spring and into the summertime. So there's going to be a lot more than just one several-day period of a conjunction. But if you're wanting the date, February 19th, 2024, that's when it happens. This will be taking place at 16 degrees of Aries. So if you have anything, and I mean anything, personal planet, sun, moon, angle, I would say anything between 14 and 18 degrees of Aries, you want to pay attention because this is where the action is at. And to be honest with you, it affects everybody, not just Aries placements or cardinals placements, because the North Node and the South Node are kind of collective markers for showing us where we're going and what we're actually actively dissolving. So the North Node kind of encourages us to step into something brand new, to learn how to evolve on a soul level. It encourages us to also, in the sign of Aries, be brave. I think that's the big takeaway from this particular conjunction. In the face of some rather difficult aspects in the skies, in February, it's encouraging you to be brave. So if that's one major takeaway, I think it would be that. So in astrology, Chiron is referred to as the wounded healer. I'm sure many of you guys have heard that term when we talk about Chiron. In Greek mythology, he is a centaur. So he's half horse, half man. And there's a really interesting story behind Chiron that I want to share with you guys before we get into, today's discussion. So Chiron's origin in general, he was born from the union of a Titan, Kronos, and a nymph. And however, when Kronos discovered his affair with her, I guess the name is like Philyra, P-H-I-Y-R-A, he transformed himself into a horse and he escaped. So unfortunately, Chiron was born with a horse's lower body and an upper body of a human, making him a centaur. And despite his unusual appearance, Chiron was known for his wisdom, kindness, and his healing abilities. Now, his education really stems from a connection that he has with the god Apollo and the goddess Artemis. It was fostered, basically, all of the learning came from these two people. And unlike other centaurs, Chiron was not associated with wild and unruly natures. He was very kind. He was not somebody who was like confrontational like some of the other centaurs in Greek mythology. And instead, he opted to become wise and a knowledgeable teacher, instructing many heroes and gods in various arts and sciences. So he was somebody who really wanted to teach the art of healing. Now, the story of Chiron's wounding is actually connected to an issue that he had with an accident with an arrow. So, you know, his story takes a tragic turn when he was accidentally wounded by an arrow dipped in the blood of the Hydra, a creature that was trying to help Hercules defeat, that he was trying to help Hercules defeat. And the blood of the Hydra was poisonous, and Chiron's wound was incurable. Being immortal, Chiron couldn't die from the wound, but he suffered immensely. So Chiron represents like a sacrifice also, because we can see this as a placement of like being compassionate. And I think Chiron offered to exchange his morality for the release in one of the Greek stories of Prometheus, who was chained to a rock as punishment. Now, Zeus was moved by Chiron's selflessness and allowed him to die and then be released from his eternal suffering. Chiron was placed among the stars as a constellation, and it's the constellation Centaurus. So essentially, in astrology, you know, Chiron represents the wounded healer archetype. It signifies the areas of our lives where we may experience deep wounds, often related to a sense of identity, self-worth, and the ability to heal ourselves and others. Chiron's placement in the natal chart can indicate both the source of our wounds, but also the potential for healing and the wisdom that may come from that process. So oftentimes, you know, Chiron is associated with the process of acknowledging and embracing our vulnerabilities, learning from our pain, and ultimately transforming our wounds into strength and empathy. It emphasizes the idea that through our own healing journey, we can gain the capacity to heal others. So I'm curious, where is your Chiron placement? I love to hear. Personally, I got Chiron right on the midheaven, right? No surprise that I'm in a healing arts profession. Chiron also is in a sign that is associated with my moon. I'm going through a Chiron moon transit right now. It has been a lot, but it has had me really focusing and reading a lot and learning a lot about Chiron. So I'm going to share a lot of that stuff with you guys today. Now, the conjunction in particular, you know, this is one of the strongest aspects in astrology. So we see this like as a fusing of two planetary energies. While the North Node is not a planet, some Vedic astrologers would argue that it is an individual planet or an invisible planet. It's a very potent point, okay? And then we've got Chiron, which is also not a planet, right? It's actually considered like an asteroid. That conjunction is going to reverberate outwards really for the rest of the year. And to some extent, it's also majorly baked into this incoming solar eclipse in Aries at the beginning of April. Anyway, so we've got it at 16 degrees. What is 16 degrees? 16 degrees is a degree that is associated with Cancer. So even though it's going to express itself in a healing direction, a self-healing direction, focusing on the wounds, tending to the wounds, it's going to be emotionally kind of connected as well, right? Because that's what Cancer is about. So when we see 16 degrees, it may play out quite literally under the guise of Aries themes, you know, men, military, action, war, courage, but it's going to be expressed in an emotional nature. So the 14 degrees has a connection to a man, people, the human race in general, a crowd of people, a nation, patriots, homeland, a lake, swimming pools, hometown, place of origin, anything that's liquid like water, tears, beer, milk, dairy, but it also has associations with the home. So the entrance to a home, the entrance to a homeland, like a flat, an apartment, but also family. So family, parents in particular, women, mothers, by the mother, and public opinion, because this is all connected to the moon. Now I want to read to you guys just some, I'm going to give you guys just like a fire off list of a bunch of themes associated with Aries. This is from my Rex Bill's Rulership book. If you don't have this book, you should have it. It's an amazing, you know, kind of like reference book that I always keep on my desk. And if you guys are looking for the recommendations of the books that I read on my channel, click the description below. I have a book list so you can see what I'm using. So I'm going to take you to Aries. I'm going to give you some of this fired off list. And these might be some themes that we're seeing throughout this North Node and Aries conjunction. All right, so anything that's physical activity, stuff connected to adrenaline, balding and baldness, that's definitely a theme of Aries. Let's see, what else? The color red, flames, in particular, places like Dallas, Texas. Mars also rules over diseases and anything that's inflammatory. We'll get to some health stuff in a minute, but that's important. It's connected to England. It has associations with the eyes and the face. Obviously fire, the forehead, also Germany. What else? Headaches, diseases of the head, insomnia, instruments, anything that's cut or that you use to sharpen. Am I missing anything? Nosebleeds, New Zealand, Palestine, Poland. Let's see, retinas in your eye, obviously. Scalp, skull, smallpox, soldiers, Syria, toothaches, violent diseases, and welders. These are just the ones that I think are most likely going to like come up because that's, you know, those are the most general kind of things connected to Aries. And in particular, when I think of Aries, I think of the connection of Mars. And so we're going to talk a lot about where Mars is during the conjunction. It's in the conjunction with Venus and Pluto, okay, in Aquarius. But when I think of Aries, I think of Mars, and I think of, you know, that conjunction between the North Node and Chiron. Some stuff that comes up for me is military action, armies, young men, acts of war, conflict, and self-defense. I am 100% against war, as I think most everybody is. I don't really think anybody is really pro-war these days. I think it's pretty safe to say that we want less wars, we want less conflict in the world, but unfortunately, this conjunction and also with an impending solar eclipse in Aries that will be happening, and then we are also going to see a Mars North Node conjunction this year, we're going to hear that war rhetoric that's going to be kind of like ramping up, this push for that. And the North Node conjunction with Chiron, in my opinion, is going to be about the effects of war on the everyday citizen, because Aries is the individual, right? And also younger people, young men. Obviously, this could bring up some potential concerns about a draft, especially when we think about the North Node Chiron being, you know, how war affects men, but young men, younger people, and also women, right? It's not just about men, it's about women. You know, are we in an age where women would potentially be drafted? Would women go and, you know, serve on the front lines? If numbers of men, you know, leave and they go to war, how is this impacting women in homes and families? How does this leave families vulnerable? We're hearing stuff like this in like the Ukraine, where it's like some people are afraid to even like leave and go to work because they're being ambushed and being taken immediately to centers where they're being enlisted. And so if we continue to see this taking place around the world, obviously this is going to leave a lot of women and children vulnerable. And so I think that that's something that's really concerning personally, even though I don't live there. I do see the potential of this ramping up of this warlike energy, especially if we have people who are resistant and they don't want war and they don't want to serve. At least here in the United States, we definitely see a really different, distinct change in tone in terms of how we look at serving the country and enlistment. I think it's lost that sense of lust and appreciation and that, you know, all of the recognition that comes with going and you know, being in the military and, you know, basically supporting your country. That doesn't mean that I don't have respect for those people. I just think that generally, you know, younger people right now, we see that they don't really idealize that kind of, you know, that particular job, and they don't see the glitz and the glamour in it any longer. I think also about, you know, issues revolving around the health of veterans. I think this is going to be a very important topic. I think we will see more of this, especially as Mars leaves Aquarius and it comes into conjunction with Saturn and Neptune. I think we're going to be talking a lot about where they lack medical and mental health care that they so desperately need, where veterans are essentially sent off, you know, originally to go fight in wars, and then they come back and then they have disabilities and physical issues and mental issues and emotional issues, and just the lack of care that they're getting and the lack of support and appreciation for basically putting their life on the line and defending their country. And where a lot of these individuals are just kind of like left out on their own. Really heartbreaking stuff. You know, I come from a background where I have, you know, family, especially on my mother's side and my dad's side, that had served in the Navy and also in the Air Force. And I have lots of friends also who were, you know, stationed in Southern California who were in the service. And it's just really disappointing, I think, to see where, you know, some of these people come back and they lack that necessary care to integrate back into real life. And that's not even just medical care. That's also, job assistance and like making sure that what they learned in the military is really applying and like helping them, come back and have a solid life. It's really, really, really sad. I do think that we're going to be hearing more also about that there is an attack or there is a war on people coming together. I say that particularly because, Aries in the North Node in Chiron is really about feeling alienated and kind of feeling like the oddball and feeling separate and isolated and angry and independent. These are definitely the lower octaves of this particular conjunction. And at the time of the conjunction, we see Mars in the rebellious sign of Aquarius, just having met with Pluto and also with Venus. So it can talk about where there can be, joint unity and coming together, and through liberation, there can be love, there can be more opportunities for self-expression, for freedom, for gathering and coming together, and that really is the solution. But we're going to see that, this conjunction is going to continue to roll, and there will be, I think, repercussions from some of the actions that are actually taking place during this conjunction down the road. I also have a really strong feeling that this is going to be about defending borders. We see that, Saturn is the dispositor of all these planets in Aquarius. It's the traditional ruler, and Saturn is going to be experiencing a conjunction with the sun. So I do think that this is an indication that we're seeing where leadership has failed us. We're seeing where there is dissolvings of borders and border walls. Obviously, this is not just something that we see in, America. We're seeing this in parts of Europe as well, that's being completely overrun by immigrants. And the effects that it's having on the masses, physically, psychologically, financially, like you name it. I mean, it's pretty safe to say, here in the United States, we're really kind of bleeding out right now with just some of the support that, we're giving to some of the immigrants that are coming here illegally. I was reading somewhere yesterday that they were saying that there are some, places where you're getting upwards of $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 checks and support, coming here, buying cars, getting driver's licenses, and doing all kinds of things, and taking up, U.S. American resources, tax resources, that's just paying out for them to have a life here. When we have, obviously veterans that are struggling, that aren't getting the medical needs, senior citizens that are having a difficult time making ends meet, families that are having to make difficult decisions between, keeping the lights on or feeding their families. It's pretty, it's getting pretty rough over here for a lot of people. And I feel like this is that moment where you're really going to see the American spirit that's going to rise up. Now, we're already kind of seeing this. If you're watching this, I'm actually recording this at the end of January, so it's way prior to this particular conjunction, and you're going to be seeing some things that are going to happen at the beginning of February, as we start to see that we're going to have like the convoy that's going to be happening here heading to Texas. I do think it's about defending borders. I think it's about groups of people coming together to defend borders. I do feel like this is where individuals are waking up and saying we have to work together, which is quite a beautiful thing when you think about it. When you think about how, the United States was founded, that it really came from a series of militias and various other, groups that were standing up and deciding that they were going to support the original colonies and like get their independence from Britain. So it's some very similar kind of spirits that you're seeing right now. I want to remind you guys that there will be this eclipse at the beginning of April, and I'll show it to you, but that particular eclipse is going to have a conjunction between Saturn and Mars in the sign of Pisces. In fact, both of the eclipses that we're going to see, both the lunar eclipse in Libra and the solar eclipse in Aries, will have a conjunction to Saturn. So even though we're looking at relationship themes, defining ourselves outside of relationships, going through like, personal and relationship matters, because that's what those two, signs are about, both of the rulers will be in conjunction to Saturn. So we're actually going to be seeing that there is some secret agenda, there is some secret things behind the scenes, there are things going on where, I genuinely believe there is an agenda to divide and conquer, to turn people against each other, to infiltrate also some of these particular groups where people are coming together and wanting to peacefully protest, to be able to create conflict and to make people fight and have division. So you guys have to be mindful that, the later degrees of Pisces is definitely about self-undoing, but the early degrees can be about hidden enemies. So we're seeing a lot of planets that are going to be moving through that particular decan over the next month. And where there could potentially be this unification and people building together, there are forces that are going to be working against that do not want to see unification. They do not want to see people getting along and trying to orchestrate a freer future. And lastly, this is where the military is going to be interfering with the lives of individuals. I think that that's very obvious, especially with, what's going to be happening with the solar eclipse in Aries. That Mars-Saturn conjunction could quite literally be about foreign wars. It could be about, false flag attacks. I think it could be things that are illusions or creating the illusion of war and making, people feel as if that's where we're going. Just recently, I was watching a news, I think it was on Redacted. They were talking about how just recently they have removed any real requirements for a draft. So I don't even think you have to have a GED or a high school education to be drafted or to enter into the service. And so that's kind of concerning because that does indicate that there may be some things going on where they are contemplating or considering if they have to, they would potentially draft. And I know there's been some chatter about that on the internet, but I can't confirm that, so I'm not going to say that it's true. But I do think that the North Node Chiron conjunction is definitely going to be showing us where the military is going to be interfering with the lives of everyday citizens. Now, something very concerning, I just added this morning. I was listening to the news and doing my daily roundup. Apparently in mid-January, so just a few weeks ago, this kind of flew under the radar, but there was a Senate bill that was proposed by, I believe it was a Democrat out of Massachusetts. And this is Senate Bill 3589. So I recommend looking it up, going and doing your due diligence, reading this Senate bill. It's long and it's lengthy, but I'm going to tell you, I read it for you. I'm going to give you the long and short of it. Essentially, this is a proposed amendment to the Constitution. It's not spelled out specifically, but it definitely is. It is designed to prohibit the formation of a well-regulated militia, nullifying your right to bear arms and or defense against tyrannical government or foreign invaders. I read the entire bill. This is not only a violation of the Second Amendment, but also a violation of the First Amendment, as well as the 14th and the 4th and also the 8th. In my opinion, it's still just being proposed. Nothing is being passed, so, you don't need to be alarmed, but I definitely recommend being informed that this is going on. The irony that this is taking place around the time of the southern border and the trucker convoy that's taking place from California to Texas. We're seeing people all across the country that are unifying to send a message to the current administration that they will show up and protect our country since they seem to fail to be able to do so. We've seen Governor DeSantis that's been coming to Texas from Florida. We're seeing the support of nearly now half of the states in the United States that is supporting Texas. But what people don't realize, if you look deeper, Eagle Pass is just a very small portion of the southern border. It's very tiny. Yes, we're seeing there's been this standoff between, Biden threatening to send the federal government in. We've been, obviously having the Texas National Guard that's been installing more barbed wire. But Eagle Pass is a very, very small space in what is a very wide southern border. And there's all kinds of reports coming out where you can see video documentation that even less than a mile from Eagle Pass, there are wide open parts of the border that are just wide open. There isn't even wall. You can walk right through it. There's no media there. Nobody's really seeing what's happening. So Eagle Pass is just like a speck on really the grander scheme of what the issue is with this open border in the border of Texas and Mexico. We have border spaces also all along Arizona, California. So this isn't the only space. It's just this seems to be the only state that's actually trying to do anything. I know this can be a really sensitive topic, but I will say that it's important that we do support Texas because essentially they are the front line for being able to protect the rest of the country. So regardless of where you stand in your politics, this is a time where we really need to be paying attention with what's going on with Texas. Now we're going to see that the eclipse that's taking place in April is going to go directly through Texas. So it's been interesting to see how this energy is already shaping up. I'll tell you guys, these are the very same eclipses that we had when Texas had to kind of set up its borders as it was originally getting ready to become a United State. So I'm working on a video for you guys for that. So I'll leave that for then. But kind of shifting back into this particular, conjunction, we're going to read the Sabian symbol for 17 degrees, and we're going to assess it and see what it means. You guys are familiar with it because I've read it to you before. It's the Sabian symbol for 17 Aries is two prim spinsters sitting together in silence. Now, I've seen this degree, and people have plenty to say, but definitely, in my opinion, I feel like this is about really looking at things and realizing that it's all about how we communicate, okay? Because if they're sitting there in silence, they're not communicating. It's all about how we communicate and who we communicate with. I feel like it shows a quiet withdrawal from life or from discussing something, but that it's easy to become isolated in, our ideas and to kind of like shut down. It's also about restricting, who you associate with and being wary of false security and making sure that false security doesn't isolate you from change and growth. Unresolved issues can lead to stunted emotional responses. Look for opportunities to open up to new possibilities, loosen up your emotional blockages. Hold on to one's original identity, not wanting to compromise because of social expectations. Relationships have a quiet knowing. But be cautious because there can be a tendency to emotionally insulate, refuse relationships, pretending to be something, disapproval of younger, more vital energies, or being judgmental, okay? Now, Chiron and Aries in general, right? If we're looking at Chiron through the lens of Aries, because Aries is how it's going to be expressed, is very important. Chiron has been in Aries since mid-April of 2018. It's going to stay there until June of 2026. So we've got a few more years of this energy. And for me, I think the big thing that really kind of comes up with the North Node Chiron is going to be identity wounds. Certainly, identity has been a really big theme since we saw the ingress earlier last year. Aries is associated with identity and self-expression and individuality. So Chiron being here suggests that we have wounds relating to a person's sense of self and how they assert their identity in the world. Now, I'm wondering how that's going to relate to having this conjunction with Mars and Pluto and Venus and Aquarius. Potentially, we may find our tribe through this conjunction, through getting sick and tired of being isolated or being alone, or not kind of going and joining a network or being social or making friends or joining a movement. We have isolated ourselves. And so I think that we're being called to kind of go and ask and, walk alongside like-minded people to heal that wound of, feeling like we're separate or different. This is going to require a need to work on self-assertion and independence because Aries is known for being assertive and independent. So, Chiron and Aries is really about grappling with the wounds related to asserting ourselves, taking initiative, or feeling confident in our independence. Maybe it's just me, I'm an Aries moon. I don't think I've really had issues in that department. But I have definitely seen through the Chiron North Node stuff on my moon that it's been about where I have been feeling more outspoken. And I have been speaking about, what's on my mind and how I feel. And I definitely feel like I've been kind of caught a little bit in the crossfires with people who have some really strong opinions about, my thoughts and my beliefs. And that's okay, that's fine. Definitely working on my criticism, although we know that the YouTube comments can be the sixth circle of hell. For the most part, you guys are really supportive, and I appreciate that. But I also know that not everybody's going to share the same, perspective on what's going on in the world. But we can learn to, appreciate other people's perspectives and learn, to agree to disagree. I'm hoping we can get back to that point. I do feel like, so much of this self-assertiveness and this independent energy that comes up can also make a lot of people feel very uncomfortable. It can make them feel as if if you support this, you're not supporting that, or, you're going against this ally, or, you're going against whatever. I mean, I feel like we live right now in a world, at least here in the United States, where if you say anything where you're more like America first, you're supporting, America's freedom, what it means to support the Constitution, people are so quick to dismiss you and be like, oh, you believe in Russia, or you work for China. It's so bizarre. And I feel like that's become like a scapegoat for not feeling comfortable with going your own way and, kind of sticking out a little bit and kind of speaking up for your own opinions. And so with that is obviously gonna come some wounds, right? But it encourages us, I think, to take initiative and to be courageous. And, because Aries is ruled by Mars, this is about action and courage. So Chiron in Aries is going to indicate wounds relating to taking bold initiatives, facing challenges head on, dealing with situations that require courage. We know Aries is like the ram, so it'll just keep running into things. And sometimes that can be where it gets us into trouble, where we're being hard-headed or unwilling to kind of agree and kind of work with another person. And obviously that can also create this dissolving effect of relationships with that South Node in Libra. So where we're too headstrong and we're unwilling to kind of get with the program, that we're, kind of isolating ourselves because we're not willing to kind of work with other people and see other perspectives. Now, we can take action. That's likely what's going to lead to heal. We're healing through action. The healing journey of Chiron and Aries often involves taking action and embracing a proactive approach to personal growth. Engaging in activities and promoting self-discovery, self-assertion, and independence might be a big part of the healing process. Obviously, get a helmet for that because it's something that's definitely, it can be a little bit of tough love. It can be a little bit of just getting on with the show and being kind of direct and bold and in your face about the things that you need to do to take action to heal yourself. For many of us, I've really seen this for a lot of my clients manifesting as, navigating, dealing with anger and aggression. Because, Aries can be associated with assertiveness, but it can manifest as like impatience, aggression, excess heat. So Chiron, here it really encourages us to explore and heal wounds related to managing and expressing anger in healthy ways. So it's about, not taking it out on other people, also not beating yourself up. We can be our own, worst enemy with Chiron and Aries. But learning that the effects of anger and all of the other, negative emotions on that spectrum, what that actually does to our bodies, how we can actually be inflicting wounds on ourselves. So excess heat obviously is going to kind of burn things up, and it makes me think about fevers and rashes and inflammation and all of the other things that can come, from this particular conjunction in Aries. But I think essentially, for me, one of the more positive qualities of this conjunction, and I think how it will likely manifest for a lot of people is, learning to lead, because Aries is a natural leader. I've always noticed people who have like Aries risings or planets in the first house or Aries moons. It's like me first, I want to get there first. I want to be the best. I want to be the fastest. So I think that this is going to really help us touch on, leading qualities. I think that we may be finding that part of our healing journey involves stepping into leadership roles and learning to guide others in areas where they have experienced wounds, especially with Mars and Aquarius. I feel like this is going to be some people who are going to be like, enough is enough, or this is how I was treated, and now I'm starting a movement, or now I'm starting, a business, or now I'm running for office, because it's politically involved as well. And so I think we're going to be seeing a lot of, especially like ex-military, we're going to see a lot of veterans and stuff that are going to be saying like, enough, like we can't be pushing for war. This is not good for our country. It's not good for the world. We don't need to be picking another fight. I mean, 2024 just started, and we're now, talking about entering into what is essentially going to be potentially the third war in like the last like year and a half. I mean, it's too much, and it's sad because we see a lot of people and politicians and stuff that are really calling for war and conflict, especially right now in Iran. And I really feel like this is going to create a major movement where you're going to see a lot of ex-military that are going to be either running for office, wanting to get involved in office. They're going to be probably campaigning with grassroots campaigns. We see these squares to Jupiter and Uranus, which really says that the power is going to be with the people, and people are going to be really voting with their wallets and their dollars. And so I think that we're going to be opting to be supporting people who are actually going to be a voice for change rather than continuing to kind of feed the beast. Now, let's kind of shift gears a little bit and let's talk health, because obviously, Chiron is about healing, right? And so, Chiron isn't limited to just physical healing. It could be spiritual healing, it could be emotional healing. But certainly, being in the sign that deals very specifically with the body and, sports injuries or burns or cuts or abrasions, it's very much a theme. Being a natal Aries moon myself, I get horrible migraines. It's been something that I've had ever since I was a kid, but I've noticed over the last year or so with these eclipses, they've been particularly bad. And I've recognized a lot of it's connected to like emotional stuff. A lot of it's connected to taking things personally, and not dealing with it very well. And so it's really taught me that I have to be kind of using some, natural remedies and making some changes and alterations in my lifestyle to better kind of curb some of these migraines. And you guys have given me a lot of really awesome remedies and stuff. So thank you for that. But headaches and migraines are a huge thing we see with Chiron and Aries. Because Aries rules the head, and individuals with strong Aries placements may be more prone to headaches and migraines. So this is about addressing stress, tension, and other factors that contribute to head-related discomfort. We can also see issues with facial and dental health, because Aries is associated with the face and the connection to the facial skin conditions and dental health. Good skincare practices and regular dental care is essential for an overall well-being. I would have to double down and agree with that. I think that especially having Saturn in the sign, having planets in the sign associated with Saturn, and Saturn is connected to bones, I definitely could see where, really managing our dental health is really important, so that we were able to kind of preserve our teeth and our smiles. And after all, like, a lot of the health of the body starts in the mouth. But also injuries and physical strain. So because Aries is a sign of action, those with strong Aries placements might feel that they're more predisposed to physical injuries and strain. So taking precautions during physical activities and incorporating proper warm-ups is beneficial. In particular, I would say warming up, right? Like, I love being an Aries moon. Some things that I use is like infrared saunas. You definitely have to stretch your body, warm your body up before you work out. Getting some sunlight, obviously, and making sure that you have the proper nutrition, so that way the body can function very well. The body systems in particular that are connected to Aries is not just the head and the face, but especially the forehead, the nose, and more of like the bones in the nose. That's more Scorpio, but the actual outside part of your nose is Aries. Mouth, eyes, including the optic nerves and the lens of the eyes. The brain, including the blood vessels, motor centers, frontal and lateral lobes, and the cerebrospinal system and the muscular system. Teeth can have connections with Saturn, sometimes Taurus, but also the upper jaw. So that's all kind of the energies of Aries. Now, sometimes with Chiron and Aries, or with, like, let's say, an Aries in the 6th house, if you're a Scorpio rising, or if you're having, Chiron transit your 6th house lord, we can definitely see that there can be imbalances and issues with disease that can come from this particular transit. And basically, other than fevers and headaches, we can see sore eyes or poor eyesight, tension headaches, inflammation, especially when excess energy is present, like dryness or heat. Muscle spasms, ruptured blood vessels, especially in the head. Mental afflictions and disorders of the brain, including congestion of the brain, memory loss, delirium by blood rushing to the head, epilepsy. We can be very emotionally rash with this conjunction. So we want to watch for that, because it can bring up a lot of emotions that can promote rashes in the face, ears, and neck. And watch for anger and arrogance taking up too much space in the body. Now, also something else that we see with Mars is Mars can bring illness. Traditionally, we saw Mars is associated with that, and death. I'm not saying we're going to see more death because of that, but now we have, Neptune and Pluto who's kind of taken that on. But, traditionally, some Mars issues that we see are shingles, measles, and chicken pox, muscle spasms, facial tics, tight jaws, swelling of the face, all diseases of heat and dryness, and also balding that we start noticing, or excess hair loss, and fits of giddiness, hyperactivity, insomnia due to disorders of the kidney, Bell's palsy in general, paralysis of the face, stroke, fever, hemorrhage, and conjunctivitis. Okay. So one thing I will say is, like, obviously I'm not a doctor, I can't give you medical advice, but I can tell you guys that 15 and 16 degrees of Aries specifically deals with strokes. When we take it a little bit further, when we look at the placement of Mars and, how Mars is kind of placed, it's in the sign of Aquarius. And Aquarius can deal with, the nervous system. In particular, Aquarius can deal with, like, the ankles and parts of the legs and the shins. And Mars is at 5 degrees of Aquarius, and it's conjunct a fixed star called Bos, B-O-S. And in particular, Mars conjunct this particular star affects the health. It causes damage to the bone structure of the legs. There's pressure at this point that brings about a chemical change which dislocates the bone, causing a ripple effect on the bone structure throughout the leg because of loss of calcium. We can see that the real problem is connected to the individual being hot and having excess heat. They'll experience basically flashing pain. The pain is sporadic and directly related to anxiety, and you can experience this throughout life. The remedy for this apparently is cool packs with mint and, using, obviously, reducing anxiety techniques if possible. Consumption of mint teas can be helpful as well. But really, it's about controlling anger and anxiety and impatience. And if the impatience is not controlled, we can find that there can be issues with circulation, and that will start to affect the nerves in the leg. Including calcium in the diet in small amounts can help as well. So I'm wondering, are we going to start to see where stress and anger and anxiety is creating these problems? Is it going to be more about how people are all collectively coming together saying we have a real health crisis on our hands, that we need to all be kind of standing up and talking about what's been happening with all these excess deaths? The repercussions, obviously, in recent years from the mandates, and facing some of these problems head on, right? Now, the causes that we see apparently with this particular injury, because I don't think people are just going to sporadically have a bunch of problems with their legs. That's not what I'm saying. But the causes from this can be, trauma to the knees, or, people who have had injuries with their knees. So we might see that this is more common. Obviously, if you fractured a fibula, or if you're having issues with your fibula, crossing your legs regularly, wearing boots that are too tight, pressure on the knee from positions during sleep, injuries from knee surgery, people who are also very thin. So if you have a tendency to suffer from, health-related issues that would cause, a lot of weight loss. But in particular, it notes people who have autoimmune conditions, and who have had nerve damage from other problems such as diabetes, excess alcohol use, or inherited nerve disorders, that you can be more predisposed to having some of these issues. Well, obviously, we know we have like a health epidemic. We've got a ton of people who are obese or overweight, a ton of people who are dealing with health issues, and diabetes is definitely a pretty common thing these days. And so I'm wondering if there's a connection there. They say that what you'll notice with this particular issue with this nerve is decreased sensation or numbness or tingling at the top part of your foot or of your upper leg, or a foot that drops. So when you're unable to hold your foot up, sometimes you'll hear like a slapping noise when you take steps, toes that drag while walking problems, weakness of the ankles or the feet, loss of muscle mass because the nerves aren't stimulating the muscles. Now, ways that apparently you can go and test this, you can go and see if you have loss of muscle control in your legs and feet. You can see a healthcare provider to perform an exam. Atrophy also, thinning or loss the foot of, the foot or foreleg muscles, and difficulty lifting up the foot and toes or making toe movements. So these are some things that you want to watch for. Now, let's talk remedies, right? Because that's a lot of stuff that we can kind of be potentially looking out for. But remedies that we want to be working with, obviously with Aries, is anything that's going to be cooling, because Aries and Mars is kind of heated, it's inflamed. So for me, something I've been really learning a lot about is a anti-inflammatory diet. Trying to eat foods that's not going to be stimulating inflammation, making sure I'm getting like lots of turmeric and other herbs and other vitamins that are going to help me, fight inflammation. But cooling herbs in the form of teas and baths, relaxing your nerves and working with moistening herbs, because there could be excess dryness. Stillness is also a good remedy, taking time to just be, actively listening, and communication training, activities that allow us to appropriately express our Martian energies in athletic competitions, high interval training, and studying the arts of fighting and self-defense are great ways to be able to neutralize this excess heat. Now, some herbal recommendations I can make. For me, when I think of Aries, I think of ginger, I think of nettles, I think of, bayberry, vitex, and wormwood. But remedy herbs are going to be things that are going to be kind of cooling some of this stuff down. So things like yarrow, vervain, eucalyptus, hawthorn, hops, these can kind of be helping you manage these energies better. And I like to work with citrine, and I like to work with bloodstone. Those are the crystals that I like to incorporate into my Aries type work. Now, we've talked about how it can affect all of us out in the world. We've talked a little bit about also some of the health implications, how to remedy that. But because Aries is the head, really a lot of this is going to be about how we think about our healing. And so what I kind of put together is just some questions that I would ask myself. I'll put this also in the description box so you guys can come back to these. But I kind of sat and thought with it for a little bit. And really for me, I came up with these questions. So in regards to like embracing your identity, how do you define your identity? I would reflect on the aspects of yourself that you feel strongly connected to. In what ways have you struggled to express your true identity in the past? And are there parts of yourself that you have suppressed or ignored? Now, to help encourage healing and practice courage, I want you to consider a past wound or challenge that still affects you. And ask yourself how you can approach this wound with courage and assertiveness. What steps can you take to confront and overcome fears relating to your self-expression and identity? For self-discovery through action, explore activities or pursuits that align with your true self. How can engaging in these activities contribute to your healing journey? Write about your experience where you feel a strong sense of empowerment and authenticity. What can you learn from these moments? When it comes to setting boundaries, reflect on situations where you struggle to set boundaries. How can you assertively communicate your needs while maintaining a healthy balance in relationships? Consider ways to prioritize self-care and ensure that your well-being is a priority. Now, on forging your own path, I want you to really think about and envision your future self, okay? Especially in terms of your personal growth and healing. How do you envision that? Describe the qualities and characteristics that you want to embody. Explore your desires for independence and self-reliance. In what ways can you take more initiative in shaping your own path? Now, on healing the warrior within, I'd like you to identify patterns of self-sabotage or self-criticism. How can you transform your inner critic into a supportive and empowering force? Explore the concept of resilience. How have you demonstrated resilience in the face of adversity, and how can you strengthen that trait? That was probably my favorite one. And on embracing vulnerability, consider situations that you've resisted showing vulnerability. How can you embrace vulnerability to contribute to your healing journey? Explore the balance between being assertive and allowing yourself to be vulnerable. How is vulnerability a source of inner strength? And then on reclaiming your independence, reflect on any situations where you felt restricted or dependent on others. How can you reclaim your independence while maintaining healthy connections? Write about your vision for a balanced self and a sufficient life and the steps you can make to make that vision come true. So just some things you guys want to think about. I know I kind of ran through those, but like I said, I'll post them probably in the description so you guys can sit with those and meditate on that. I want to talk to you a little bit about the aspects and how this is going to play out in the future now. So obviously we have this conjunction on the 19th, but as you're watching this, this is going to be really felt from now all the way until the end of February, until we start seeing Chiron and the North Node separate. But even then we will see stuff kind of coming back up, because when this gets reactivated, when planets cross these degrees, you're going to see some of the themes of this kind of return. So this is kind of like an open-ended, really between now and May kind of thing that you're going to be feeling. But when we have the conjunction, Mars, Venus, and Pluto are all in conjunction. Perhaps as you're seeing Mars actually approach Pluto, this is when you start feeling it. So we're going to see Mars and Pluto come into conjunction, it looks like, right around the 12th and the 13th of February. The conjunction itself will obviously be on the, is it the 16th? The 19th? The 18th? There we go. The 18th. The other aspects, I'm not going to say they don't matter, but really I'm just really focusing on Mars. That seems to be the planet that I'm looking at the most. Now, it is possible around the 13th, as we're starting to feel this conjunction coming in, as the moon sweeps into Aries and it touches on Chiron, the North Node, and the moon is there, it's likely this could prompt some kind of an event. Because remember, Mars is the ruler of Aries. So when the moon's in Aries, we got to look at Mars. So this could be starting as early as February 13th. Ironically, the same day that Mars and Pluto come into conjunction. All right. So for me, I think that there may be some events and things taking place literally with this day. And we're like, okay, I'm feeling the wound, And so then as Chiron and the North Node come together, we start focusing on healing it. Now the positive, because there is a positive here, is that we are going to see in the month of February, Mars and Venus are going to meet. Okay, they're going to meet on the 20th, and that's going to be in Aquarius, and it's going to be at 5 degrees. So it's a pretty sexy, pretty romantic degree, but it can also be about healing the inner child, healing through art, healing through community. This can be about finally kind of like not just addressing these wounds, but working with them. We have the North Node ruler and the South Node ruler in conjunction, and this is a pretty passionate conjunction considering it's close to Pluto, so it represents a massive transformation and awakening, right? The dispositor of all of this is Uranus. So Uranus is now direct and it's at a 19. So it's changing our relationships with groups, with associations. Quite literally, I think this is about a lot of people who are, moving away from like identity politics. They're opting not to kind of vote along party lines. They're recognizing that they can't be, kind of confined to a particular party if they feel like the party is not actually in alignment with what their, traditional values and their beliefs are. I personally feel more and more that what we're seeing more is like a uniparty. I mean, I was seeing red this morning as I was drinking my coffee, only to find out that there is a proposed multi-billion-dollar bill that the Republicans have promoted. And they're saying that it's going to basically be to fund and give support to, all of the illegal immigrants that are here, to provide funding to release the pressure off of the cities, which sounds good in theory, right? It's like, okay, well, let's not make the cities pay for it. Let's give, them the money to kind of help deal with this because they're basically bleeding out. When in reality, then you find out that the Democrats are like, oh yeah, we want that. Well, the Democrats are going to want money because they want the problem to go away. That money's not just going to come out of anywhere. It's going to be something that's going to continue to come out of our tax budget. And on top of that, embedded deep within the bill, you see all of this kind of like tax credits and all of this stuff, for business and all this stuff, basically that Republicans want. It's a shit show. Like it's ridiculous. So it's crazy to see that suddenly now Republicans are coming around and like, I'm really not for either party, but to see them come around and say, let's fix it, really when it's just, disguised as that because it's like tax deductions is like crazy. Anyway, what I'm getting at is that because the dispositor of Aquarius is in a sign that's about money, you're going to see major, political moves in regards to money and things that are being decided upon in Congress, which is Aquarius, and how it's like, pressing this financial system. I really feel like it's like a Hail Mary. Like they're like, let's just see how much more we can squeeze out of the cash cow before shit hits the fan. Because I think a lot of people know that economically we're kind of at a tipping point and that some of the markets and things are like literally at the top because there's like I think there's a big bust coming. And so I look at this and I feel like a lot of it is like people coming together being like, this is crazy, like, we almost are kind of born into a system where we're, I think, born with a tax of upwards of, not tax, but like a debt per citizen because of the national debt of upwards of like $80,000 or more per person. If you really want to divide it up based off of our total population, that we're just constantly feeding the beast of taking out more debt and then just paying taxes and then being happy that we're getting a little bit of taxes back every year, when in reality, it's like maybe we're paying $10,000 in taxes, but we're getting back $3,000. The further that you dig into some of this stuff and you start to kind of look at what's going on, we realize that like, a mass majority of the money that we're actually putting into the tax pot is being used in ways that's not actually going towards our resources. It's not going towards schools and infrastructures. It's not being well spent. It's being funneled and spent on war. Or it's being almost like, washed through these proxy wars in other places. I think people are waking up. I think people are realizing that if we continue to keep feeding the beast, that it's going to be this never-ending cycle and that we have to be the ones to save ourselves. North Node in Aries is very self-preservation. Put your oxygen mask on first before you help other people. But in this case, it's like those who are able to do that with the North Node Chiron, who can really realize that they bring something to the table individually that can help the collective, people are going to start coming together, right? So this is this opportunity for that. Now, something that you're going to see, and this will be in March, this will be my reactivation points. That's what I call them. On March 19th, we're going to see Mercury and the North Node conjunct at 16 degrees. So receiving messages about the future, okay? So one thing to take into consideration is, you know, April is going to boast a solar eclipse in Aries. It'll be exactly conjunct Chiron, and we're going to have Mercury retrograde. So it's really a good time for everybody to get super familiar with Aries in their chart, because part of what is building as we go through Aquarius season will be sextiles that will be awakening kind of like that warrior within about like, what am I going to do about it? You know, how am I taking active steps in my life to be able to kind of heal my issues, hold myself accountable, and be a better person? Well, watch this conjunction. So Aries and the North Node in conjunction at a 15 degree. So it is a Gemini degree. It'll be about conversations, words, things we're writing, stuff we say. Really, for me, Mercury in Aries is walking the walk, talking the talk. It's words in action. So when Mercury is conjunct the North Node, we have really important, you know, kind of like fated conversations and interactions with people. And it's going to be about, yeah, like I think holding ourselves accountable. Now, then we're going to see Mercury conjunct Chiron here, and it's at an 18 degree. So it is about health. It is about wellness. It's about physical health, mental health, I think. And this is as we are getting ready to come into the eclipse, which will be in Libra. And it's going to be round about 5 degrees of Libra on the, let's see, what day will that be? There we go. Round about the 25th of March. And remember how I said to you guys that both of the eclipses are going to boast a conjunction to Saturn. So even though it's like, yes, myself and other people, and you're going to hear a lot of astrologers that are going to be like, you know, it's about karma and relationships and people are breaking up. Okay, maybe. But really, my eye is on Saturn. Saturn is like, I love you, Saturn, but Saturn's like a little bit of the villain. We're going to see that there is stuff that's going on behind the scenes that's orchestrating a lot of conflict in relationships, a lot of, yeah, okay, karma and relationships playing out, but you know, Saturn and Venus is saying some of the stress that's going on in relationships is because people cannot pay their bills. You know, even Venus is at 16 degrees. It's exalted, but it's conjunct Saturn. People are afraid of, you know, not being able to, you know, support their families, or they're questioning, you know, when their next paycheck is going to come in. And of course, that's going to cause stress in any relationship. But Saturn's kind of the culprit here, unfortunately. Then we're going to see on the 8th, this is when the solar eclipse in Aries is going to come in. And this is the one you guys want to watch. So solar eclipse at 19 degrees. Solar eclipse is action. 19 is relationships. Sun, Chiron, exact conjunction with the moon is healing the relationship with ourselves, right? What does Chiron bring? Crisis sometimes. It's kind of like Pluto. It's like, oh, I have this wound. It's bleeding out. What am I going to do? The ruler of all of this is Mars. Oh, Mars is conjunct Saturn. What is Saturn in Pisces? Lack of leadership, you know, secret or hidden things going on behind the scenes, things that are trying to orchestrate conflict, things that are secretly limiting us, that are holding us back. It can also be a limit of our, you know, spiritual beliefs, our spiritual practice, our growth. It may be limiting individuals, I think, from coming together, you know, especially 12th house can be in churches, in, you know, community spiritual centers. It can be a limit, especially when it comes to hospital care, resources. But Saturn in the 12th house with Mars is like orchestrating a foreign war. And then people being like, how is this going to affect us? You know, if, God forbid, there was a potential, you know, draft or something like that. You know, I think as an American, just being somebody who has taken the time to really kind of like learn about what's been happening over the last 30, 40 years, and realizing and recognizing that like America's really picking a lot of the fights on the playground. You know, there's a lot of running around and trying to kind of do things for business or control reasons. And we've been very lucky to an extent where we haven't had war on our homeland outside of people will claim, okay, you know, Pearl Harbor, yes, but that was a very long time ago. And, you know, 9/11, I'm not even gonna get into that, but definitely we have not experienced some of the tragedies and the acts of war that a lot of other countries have. And so to some extent, you know, I feel like we have a very distorted view of what war means. We have, you know, senators and we have congressmen and people who want to get on the internet and they want to get on, you know, national television and say, you know, burn it down, you know, go to war, you know, destroy them. These are people who don't always have children. They don't have a background in the military. They've never lost loved ones to war. And they certainly are not in a position to go themselves. And so I would caution you guys against getting on, the war rampage. I do think that there's going to be lots of potential false flags. Mars conjunct Saturn does feel very fishy to me, pun intended, where it could be stirring up a lot of things, getting a lot of individuals very angry and very reactionary. And the last time that happened with 9/11, we saw that there was supposedly an act of terror or an attack in New York City. And everybody got real riled up and everybody got really upset, rightfully so, right? Nobody wants to see that. I remember being, I think it was like 12 or 13 years old, seeing the images on the news. And nobody questioned the fact that was like, yes, we're going to war. And then, I saw for that whole year, the Iraq war just paraded all over the television as a kid. And went on for, obviously many years and was not good for anybody involved. And obviously I don't think was really well founded. But I guess what I'm getting at is that, really that led to a whole series of legislation that has essentially destroyed any ability of privacy. You can't go into an airport without having things searched. Now we have all kinds of acts and other things that basically gives the government free and clear ability to go in and look into any of your stuff. Anybody they consider a domestic terrorist, they can go and look and see what they're doing in their private lives, right? And so that led to what is now this moment. We're at this precipice where, because we've lost so many of those freedoms, now it's becoming even harder to kind of stand up and voice our concerns. And so my fear is that with this eclipse, you're going to see that there's going to be some false flag stuff that's going on that leads to a similar moment where everybody gets riled up and says, yes, we're going to war. And if there's anything that we know, it's that when we see presidents, regardless of the party that's failing in the polls, generally the go-to thing to do is to get involved in war, because it's going to kind of get everybody to unify behind that particular administration. It's going to generate money. It's going to generate jobs. And it may potentially be something that I think is like a Hail Mary for 2024. And I hate saying that, but I'm going more off of the astrology more than anything. We don't need more foreign wars. We don't need more conflict. We don't need this, because this will be something that will be very different. And to some extent, I think we're already at war. I think that the third war has been fought in a very different way. It's a psychological war. It's a spiritual war. It's not your typical, tanks and armors and things. There's something to be said about the fact that the war that's been taking place in Ukraine, not that I doubt that there hasn't been conflict, but we're not seeing it. We're not seeing it. And we're also hearing that currently Ukraine is claiming that they're having upwards of almost, I think they said like almost 800,000 new soldiers. Where did these soldiers come from? Where are they coming from? My concern, looking at the United States chart, looking at the spring equinox chart, is that there will be some kind of a war, but I think it's going to be some kind of war that America gets drug into, either because of a false flag event or because there's going to be some kind of support of an ally, personally. Anyway, so, this eclipse is so significant because it will last for about 12 or 13 months. We're going to see it unfold that long, which will really take us into the beginning of 2025. But it's also significant because Mercury will be retrograding back at the time of this particular eclipse. So it's bringing some kind of news, right? And remember, Mars is the dispositor of all of this. So it's basically saying, oh, we got news that this thing happened, in another country. So it looks like the Cazimi will happen at 22 degrees on the 11th of April. Mercury retrogrades back, hits Chiron again on the 15th, reactivates the eclipse. And we see Mars that is kind of trapped now between Saturn and Neptune. Now, what is Mercury? Systems, right? Health. It can be about caregivers. It can be, people who are in service industries. And so I do feel like this is going to be about reviewing, well, how much military do we have? What is the state of the military? Are they in good state? No, not necessarily. We're seeing a lot of people who have been required to take certain, let's say, medications. We have seen a lot of them that have suffered a lot of ill effects from that. We have seen a lot of them that are also just like crippled mentally or physically. And then a laundry list of reasons why people aren't wanting to enlist. So I'm going to go on a limb here and say that we're probably not as well prepared as we could or we should be, considering, you know, America was always really kind of known at one point for their military and all of that. So when this retrograde happens, I think it's going to be about the health of our military or the health of individuals. We've got Mars in between Saturn and Neptune, which I do think is a seated moment of disease. I think that it is an indication that this is some kind of disease that they're going to claim is coming from foreigners or it's coming from borders. We've got people coming in through the southern border. We don't know what diseases they have. They're coming from, you know, various countries. It's not just, I think it's so ignorant for some people to be like, oh, it's just Mexicans coming across the border. You got people from countries all over the world. We're seeing people from China. We're seeing people from various parts of Asia. We're seeing people from all over Africa, from all over South America. These are not just Mexicans that are touching the border. These are people who are coming because they see an opportunity and a free pass to be able to get into the country. And so beyond just the concern, the safety concern of like, where are they coming from? What's the purpose? Why are they here? What's the health repercussions of this? And so it would be such an easy way for there to be a virus that would come, right? So viruses is more so connected to Neptune, you know, viruses and diseases. And then Mars would be fevers, it would be sores, it would be things like that. I also have my thoughts about, you know, potential water contamination, but I'll leave it at that. I don't want to, I'm already probably on a list somewhere, but you guys get what I'm saying. You know, I have concerns for, you know, water attacks or things that are, you know, poisoning water. And then we're going to see Mars continue to move in between, you know, Saturn and Neptune for a little while. Now that Mercury retrograde is going to come into conjunction with Venus in its fall in Aries. So that's also indicating a change with health. Venus will hit Chiron on the 21st. The Mercury retrograde will then end. Mercury will reactivate that 19 degrees. Mars leaves the conjunction of Neptune by the end of April. Mercury returns to 19 on May the 4th. Mars is in Aries. Mars will come into conjunction with the North Node on the 19th. Then we're going to see Mars at 19 degrees, the same degree. Actually, I should go back. Mars is going to be at 16 degrees, so that's the same degree as the Chiron eclipse on the 22nd. So Mars and the North Node in conjunction is kind of like, you know, showing up and being like, okay, you know, like I'm actively doing the healing. I'm actively defending myself. I'm actively taking some kind of stand. And people being, you know, agitated, angry, frustrated. And then Mars is going to hit 19 on the 26th of May, reactivate the eclipse. And then it's going to hit Chiron at 22 degrees. It's like, oh, man. There's some wild stuff going on. And that's not even talking about the Jupiter, Uranus stuff that's going on in Taurus, where we're going to see wild things with the banking system. Of course, I think that the stock market may significantly rally on news of some kind of war or, you know, some kind of conflict. I mean, I hate to say that, but I think it would. I would really be watching those dates though. So, you know, April 18th, when Venus is at 16 degrees conjunct Mercury, where people are realizing there's a change going on an individual level. It's time to show up. It's time to step up and heal ourselves. April 20th through the 30th, Mercury sitting at 16 degrees, and then it stations on the 25th, realizing what actions we're taking, learning more about the confidence in ourselves, the ability to be courageous, to be brave, to make changes, to stand up. May 22nd, Mars will hit May 22nd, Mars will hit 16 degrees of Aries here. And then on the 29th, it'll hit Chiron. So it's like, man, it's not just February. It's like we have that conjunction in February, and then it really starts to show the effects in April. So could it be that there is some kind of shift going on with health, with military, whatever, which is kind of trying to keep people from unifying? Is there this collective kind of waking up where, you know, individuals are feeling more outspoken, they're feeling more, you know, I guess independent, perhaps? You know, I've thought for a long time that there was going to be, you know, some move to try to disarm people or to try to kind of keep people from being able to defend themselves. And it would not surprise me with some of the stuff that's building right now going into early February with this convoy, You know, I'm all for people peacefully protesting. I feel like that's the only way to protest. We should not be doing anything that's going to be inciting violence. It's not the answer. If anything, that's going to create more of an issue with being able to have freedom of speech. But I have my concerns about this being a situation where you're going to potentially see a very similar setup as what we saw on January 6th. Now, regardless of what you believe in that matter, that's not really the point. My point is that anytime we see talks of a civil war or civilians that are going to be potentially showing up and having standoffs with, you know, officials or other people, it's like, it's not a good situation. You know, it's not worth having that kind of standoff, especially in a very small, minute piece of the puzzle of the southern border. There's other ways for people to kind of come together. Now, you factor that in with that bill that's trying to be passed where they're claiming that people don't have the right to kind of come together and have their own militias. Really kind of heartbreaking when you're seeing people coming from all over the country that's willing to kind of stand along the southern border, especially ex-military, ex-police officers, you know, people who have been in armed services and all kinds of things that are just wanting to be there to show support in what's going on. Certainly, patriotism is going to be seen as a threat, and that's something that I would really think about. People are going to be put in a position where they have to decide which side they're going to be on, which is really unfortunate when there really shouldn't be any sides. There's nothing wrong with being able to support your country and making sure that it's protected and it's free. But make no mistake, that is going to be seen as something that is going to be a threat. So be mindful of that if you are participating in those things. With that being said, I will leave my rant at that. I'll talk to you guys more about the incoming eclipse videos. I'm going to be working on them pretty soon because we're going to be feeling them now at the end of February. I'll also be talking to you more at length about some of these like retrogrades in Aries when Mars hits the North Node. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up and show you kind of like the pieces of the puzzle. So there's something that's being seeded now where you're being encouraged to kind of face the music, deal with problems head on. You want to look at which house Chiron in the North Node is conjuncting in and know that this is going to be where you're fighting the good fight for the better part of the next several months. Now, I'm a Western astrologer. For the purpose of my videos, I always use whole sign astrology. That's my MO. So I'm going to make this a whole sign chart for you guys so you can see where this conjunction is taking place. There we go. And I recommend listening to your rising sign first, and then I recommend listening to your sun sign and your moon sign. And in this situation in particular, I feel like it's really beneficial to listen to the moon sign because the moon has associations with the North and the South Node. So I would definitely do that. I'm trying to pull this conjunction. Okay, there we go. All right, so listen to your rising, your sun, and your moon sign to kind of get a big picture of what's going on with this particular conjunction. And if you're a Placidus user, you can also listen to that. You want to look at where around about 15 to 17 degrees of Aries is in your chart. You may have to listen to more than one particular rising sign. I've noticed in recent videos there are some people who seem to have like really large interceptions or things in their houses where they're like, this doesn't add up. You have to go and look at either your whole sign or consider booking a reading with an astrologer so you can have a better understanding of your makeup. That's something I'd always love to do, so you can reach out to me. My links are below if you'd like to book a reading with me. So let's get this party started. We're going to start first with Aries and Aries rising. Well, Aries, everybody's looking at you. What are you doing? Last night, you know, I was watching the most recent Tucker Carlson, and I was listening to him interview Russell Brand, and it was so amazing to sit there and just like watch Russell. He's like almost like possessed. He's like such like a archetype of Mercury, you know. He just the way that he talks, it's just amazing. Anyway, I really resonated with a lot of his passion and a lot of his emotions and his feelings because I'm an Aries moon too. And even though I'm not an Aries rising or an Aries sun, maybe like you, I've felt this really strongly on my moon. And I feel like I've been using through, you know, my emotions, being able to kind of talk and put together some of these lectures for you guys. It doesn't really matter if you're an Aries rising sun or moon. Just know that you are a major player in the midst of what's going on in the world right now. A lot of your willingness to heal yourself is really going to help heal other people. I say that because the North Node conjunction is in your first house of physical self-healing, but also Mars, which is your ruler, and it's also connected to this, is in the 11th house. Now, I feel like for you, A lot of this is about personal identity and self-expression. It may be, significant themes. You may be on a journey of self-discovery, healing wounds relating to your self-image, and learning to assert yourself authentically. So that's going to be your focus for the better part of the next few months. I'm wishing you lots of good vibes on your healing journey. We've got Taurus and Taurus rising. You're going to be doing this North Node Aries conjunction in your natal 12th house. Mars is the ruler. It's in your 10th. My Tauruses, for you, I feel like this is an awesome time for rest, renewal, retreat. Sometimes being alone, sometimes being in temples, churches, retreat centers, getting care if you need care. 12th house can also be hospitals. But I feel like this is about doing a lot of work behind the scenes when it comes to your professional life, when it comes to your spiritual life. The 12th house is about spiritual exploration, subconscious patterns, solitude. These will all be focal points. And healing may involve addressing deep-seated wounds, addressing boundaries in spiritual pursuits, and taking courageous steps in private self-discovery. But believe it or not, a lot of that may take center stage because it's taking place in your 12th house, but it's ruled by Mars, which is in your 10th. So you may be sharing a lot of your private healing journey, your experiences, how you're learning through silence and spending time alone. You're helping talk to other people about that, okay? So good luck, Taurus. We've got Gemini and Gemini rising. You will be doing this North Node Chiron conjunction in your natal 11th house. And for you, Gemini, this is a decent place. You've got a lot of nice aspects with this conjunction. It's sextiling your ascendant. It's also sextiling where we see Mars transiting in the 9th house, which is in a fellow sister air sign. So a little easier for you to navigate. Obviously, North Node Chiron in the 11th house is all about social connections, friendships, community involvement. These will all be highlighted. Healing may involve addressing wounds and social dynamics, asserting individuality within groups, and taking initiative in collective pursuits. I keep telling all my Gemini risings, they're like, I don't know, I need to make friends, or, I can't find a group that I want. And I keep telling you guys, if you can't find it, start it yourself. Go and start a club, go and start a group, start a Facebook group, start a threads, whatever it is that you want to do. So that way you can be able to connect with other people because I think you're going to be bringing in people from other places. And I think you have an opportunity to connect with people of different cultures, backgrounds, or be making connections that can really help your educational pursuits. Good luck. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. You're going to be doing this North Node Aries conjunction in your natal 10th house, ruled by Mars, and Mars is in your 8th. Well, this looks like some big transformations that are taking place, especially when it comes to your professional reputation in your career. Obviously, having Aries and the North Node Aries and Chiron in an angular house, it can be creating some squares. So you might be feeling the pressure to evolve, to change, to embrace like a new identity professionally. Mars is also in your 8th house, so this requires deep introspection, change, transformation, purging. And for you, this is about your career and your public image. A life path may be significant to these themes. Healing may involve addressing wounds relating to your professional identity and taking assertive steps in career pursuits and embracing leadership roles. This is a big moment for you if you are feeling like it's time for you to enter into a new career, to launch a business. It may mean that your work is going to be in some kind of therapy, psychological, healing arts, metaphysics type of work, because this is all in your 8th house, and that this change requires you to get real about your fears, especially when it comes to money and joint resources. But I can tell you that some of you guys may be embracing, I think, like a healing modality out in the world right now, or you're helping other people, or maybe you're helping other people heal. I could definitely see this about like working with groups of people, especially relating to like sobriety, or like I said, spiritual healing, psychic healing, and the healing arts as well. Good luck, Cancer. We've got Leo and Leo rising. You are going to be doing this North Node Chiron conjunction in your natal 9th house in a fellow sister fire sign. So it'll be trining your ascendant. So this is helpful. The ruler is Mars. It's in your 7th house. And my goddess, look at that 7th house stellium. There's some big things happening in relationships right now. Some big partnerships that are emerging. Some big love stories. Some big changes to pre-existing relationships. For you, my Leos, I feel like the 9th house is really indicating that, this is about higher learning, exploration, philosophical pursuits. These are all going to be central themes. Healing may involve addressing wounds relating to beliefs, asserting yourself in matters of faith, education, or taking courageous steps towards your personal growth. This may require a teacher, a mentor, a relationship, or a partner to help you through this process. And some of you guys, I really think some of you guys are like, falling in love with foreigners, meeting people, friendships turning into relationships, friendships turning into business partnerships, people talking about settling into serious relationships, getting married, evolving in relationships. It can be wonderful opportunities to heal your belief about relationships. Good luck. I got Virgo and Virgo rising. You're doing this North Node Chiron conjunction in your natal 8th house. Which is all about, transformation. That is the name of the 8th house game. The ruler is Mars, and it'll be in your 6th house of health and healing. So for you, my Virgos, Chiron conjunct the North Node in the 8th house is going to be themes relating to shared resources, intimacy, and transformation. Healing may involve addressing deep emotional wounds and asserting boundaries in shared situations, embracing your personal empowerment. Aries is the self, 8th house is transformation. So you're transforming something deep within yourself about letting go, transforming, releasing, but also tax matters, money matters, intimacy, sexual matters. And the ruler is Mars in the 6th house. So if you're like, let's say, I guess like one manifestation is like, oh, I need a surgery, so you're going and finding someone who can kind of help you with that surgery. Or I need a new healthcare practitioner, to help me with my health, my habits. I need a therapist, right? These people can kind of be coming in to kind of help you with whatever it is that you're tending to and that you want to heal. Mercury is also kind of in the mix here. So there is some sense of saying that you are focusing more on your health and your habits and routines, and likely you want to change them. And it's to kind of help you move through some of these new habits. It might require a little bit of like mind, body, spirit balance, right? Good luck, Virgo. We got Libra and Libra rising. You will be doing this North Node Chiron conjunction in your 7th house. Same thing for the other cardinal signs. If you have any personal planets around, let's say like 14 to 18 degrees of Libra, Sun, Moon, rising, you may be feeling the effects of the opposition a little bit more strongly. So for you, Libra, this is in your 7th house. So this is all about relationships and partnerships, one-on-one connections. This is the key area of healing. Healing may involve addressing wounds in relationships and learning to assert oneself within partnerships and embracing your individuality while maintaining balance. This is interesting because, the other way of looking at this is the 7th house is relationships, but Aries is self. So you may find that there's a lot going on in relationship dynamics where you're healing the relationship with yourself. And as you're evolving and you're changing, it can be creating some challenges and some conflicts with relationships to other people. Now, the positive is that you do have Mars in your 5th house in an air sign, which trines your ascendant. And you have the stellium of planets in the 5th house, Libra. The truth is like, look, this could be about healing the relationship with your inner child. This can be about healing an issue with a child. This can be about how children and love and creativity can be enriching relationships. This can also be about really focusing on falling in love, having fun. Chiron transits can actually bring really significant relationships that can come in to heal. So if you're in an existing relationship having some rough patches, really the 5th house says that you need to be focusing on ways that you can have more fun together or be expressing a lot of this energy. So it's diffusing some of the conflict. And if you're somebody who's single, well, a loaded 5th house means that love is on the way and you may be bringing someone in who's going to help you heal some of your relationship wounds. Watch for the Mars-Venus conjunction to be particularly sweet for you, Libra, in that 5th house. Good luck. I got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. You're going to be doing this North Node Chiron conjunction in Aries in your natal 6th house. My Scorpios, you know, you guys are one of the signs that's more likely to be having health issues. Anybody can, but it does happen to be in your 6th house of health. So be advised that this might manifest literally as cuts, burns, abrasions, fevers, headaches, sickness. You need to be paying much more attention to your health here. In the 6th house, this is about health, work, daily routines. These are all central themes. This is about, you know, healing as a journey that involves addressing physical and mental health issues, asserting boundaries in the workplace, and adopting a much more proactive approach to your well-being. Now, you're having eclipses here as well, so that can be an indication that you're changing your health habits. This can be going back to the gym, you know, changing something about your work schedule, so you're making more time for health or wellness as well. Aries is something that you do personally. And the ruler is Mars, which is also your ruler. So, you know, for you, Mars is moving through your 4th house, and it's in conjunction with Venus. So this can be about healing habits at home, organizing the home, tending to emotions and needs and family matters. Working out from home with Mars in the 4th house as it relates to the 6th house is something that's very favored as well. But be mindful, like with the eclipses and the retrogrades, that this can be prompting some health stuff, and you want to be watching where Mars is going. Later in the year, you know, we're going to see, like, other than that solar eclipse in Aries, Mars will go through the 6th house, and I think that you're going to kind of rebound a little bit. But pay attention to your emotions with Mars in the 4th house. Your emotions can very much affect your physical health and habits. Good luck. We got Sag and Sag rising. You will be doing this North Node Chiron conjunction in your natal 5th house. This is a sister fire sign, so it'll be trining your sun, moon, or rising. And the 5th house is all going to be about creativity, self-expression, and matters relating to children and romance. This will be highlighted for you. Healing may involve embracing your creative potential, expressing individuality in relationships, and taking risks in matters of the heart. Now, nothing's guaranteed with the 5th house. It's always kind of like a bit of a gamble. The ruler here is going to be Mars, and Mars is in your 3rd house. So it does look like this is communicating, this is talking, this is learning, this is sharing as a form of self-expression. This can be also road trips, having fun, communicating and healing issues that you may have with siblings. And I feel like writing can be super therapeutic, or sharing or telling your story in some way to kind of express what's kind of going on in your heart space. I do feel like with eclipses here for you, my Sagittariuses, this can be an indication that there is an opportunity to launch a new creative project, you know, establish a new relationship, you know, talk about the birth of a child. All of these things are possible with this eclipse coming in your 5th house. So possibly there is like a need to start, you know, talking about these things, or kind of sharing what's on your mind. And it can be in a very creative way. This can be definitely healing through art and performance. Good luck. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You're doing this North Node Chiron conjunction in Aries in your natal 4th house. And for you, Capricorn, this is squaring your sign, so you might be feeling the pinch of the square, especially because, well, you're sandwiched between the North and the South Node transits. When the North Node Chiron conjunction comes into the 4th house, this is themes relating to family, emotional security. These might be emphasized. Healing could involve addressing wounds from the past and asserting boundaries with family members and the family dynamic, and creating a much more authentic sense of home. So healing the roots, the mother wound, the womb, you know, connections with mom, home, and also the past. The ruler of this is Mars, and it happens to be in your 2nd house. So I do feel like this is about literally probably investing more on, you know, time, money, resources spent with home or family. Some of you guys may be spending money to move. Some of you guys may be buying your first home. Some of you guys are financially supporting a partner or a family member. Some of you guys are arguing about money with family. It really depends. But watch for when those eclipses roll through, because I think a lot of you guys are going to be being called back home in some way or another, or being asked to reassess or reevaluate home. Money or resources is also being pooled and brought through a home situation. So if you're in a lucky position of saying, hey, I've got more than one house, I'm selling one, or I'm moving in with a partner, so, you know, I'm freeing one up, or I'm leasing it. This can say that through the willingness to make changes with the home, it can actually really benefit you financially, and also give you a healthier sense of self-esteem and security. So continue to watch that process unfold of figuring out where is home. But I think the lesson here with Chiron in Aries in the North Node is home is where you are. It doesn't need to be defined with like a certain place or an area code or a zip code or, you know, a certain city, state, or person. It has to be within yourself. Good luck. We have Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You'll be doing this North Node Chiron conjunction in your natal 3rd house. This is ruled by Mars, which is in your 1st house. So you're feeling pretty passionate, pretty spicy, kind of feisty, right? So you're going to be doing this in the 3rd house. This is all about communication and learning. These are going to be the main points of this conjunction. This is about working on healing wounds relating to self-expression, taking the initiative in communication, and embracing a much more assertive approach to learning. So I could see like Mars and Mercury and Venus in your 1st house being like, I'm learning this, did you know? You know, like informing people about what you're learning or, you know, what you've been studying or sharing your writing with people or, you know, initiating new podcasts or blogs or other things where you're speaking your mind and feeling very passionate and also very, you know, opinionated, I think, with all those planets in your 1st house. And feeling like you need to do something with all this information. You need to funnel it and put it into something. And it can be healing wounds revolving around feeling like capable of writing, sharing, teaching, or learning as well. So you may be feeling very inclined to want to, you know, return to a program or complete some form of education or something that you have felt like you haven't been able to tackle. And now suddenly you feel like you have the capabilities and the willingness to do so. I think a lot of you can feel very inspired to want to talk about your role in what's going on with this change in the collective. You and Aries are very important right now. You guys are kind of like the 2 ones that are leading the march because we're going to be seeing major ingresses into these signs for the next few years. Pluto in Aquarius, Saturn and Neptune will go into Aries. And you guys are the signs that really don't like being told what to do. So we've got a lot of like, you know, Mars, Uranus energy, and it's a lot of like where individuals standing up can actually create that ripple effect that can wake up the masses. So we need people who are going to be very direct and kind of opinionated and matter of fact and in your face. So find an outlet for some of this energy to be able to better influence other people. Good luck. And we've got Pisces and Pisces rising. You will be doing the North Node Chiron conjunction in the 2nd house of personal resources. Ruled by Mars, and Mars is a part of this stellium in the 12th. You're kind of like watching on the sidelines, eating popcorn, like watching it all go down, right? You're like, okay, here we go. And Saturn and Neptune's in your sign, so you're like, yeah, it's just the matrix that's breaking down. So for the North Node Chiron conjunction in your 2nd house, this is going to bring up issues revolving or relating to self-worth, values, material resources. This will all come to the forefront. Definitely money matters, and you know, healing may involve a stronger sense of personal value and taking assertive steps to secure your own financial stability. A lot of being like, I want to do it on my own. I'm going to build it on my own. You know, I am becoming self-sufficient. While these eclipses are hitting your 8th house in the 8th house in Libra, you're breaking away from reliance on other people's resources and you're learning to do it yourself. Granted, all of these planets, including Mars, are in your 12th house. So there's a lot of going, we have to let go of the old ways of doing things. We have to embrace the new. Maybe this is for you, you know, a lot of manifesting and visualizing and believing in yourself and doing a lot of abundance work. In the words of Esther Hicks, you're like in the vortex, right? And there's a lot of like, okay, money flows easily to me. It's always around. The universe is always providing. It's abundant. I have everything that I need and I have it within myself. And so there's a lot of like as above, so below, and having to really kind of do that work and believe in that work and start to kind of see it. And you'll really start to see it kind of roll in with these series of eclipses and planets that are going to be moving through there over the next few months. But if you dream it, you can make it kind of happen. So it's really mind over matter with this one, Pisces. Don't just do the financial work, do the work also on your resources and your self-esteem as well. Be building yourself up and kind of like, you know, you have to be your own hype man, I think, with this particular transit. So that's my take on the North Node and Chiron conjunction. Like I said, I'll put some of the stuff that I discussed in the description, and I'll also link some of the other videos that I've done. If you didn't catch my interview with Lori of Lunatic Astrology, we chatted about this in early January. And I have another video that I did like months ago on this conjunction as well. So I'll make sure I plug all of that so you have all the information that you need. Definitely consider sitting with those writing prompts and meditating on the questions revolving around self-healing. But let me know, how is this affecting you in your chart? How do you feel about these conjunctions? Leave me your comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, thank you guys so much for your love, your support, your likes, your comments, your shares. You guys help the channel grow. Please share this with somebody who can benefit from this in their healing journey. And I look forward to seeing you guys here tomorrow. We're going to be doing live readings. Catch me here at 5 p.m. Pacific, and it'll be 8 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be doing some live tarot readings. Come and join me and hang out. We can talk all about your healing journey. If you guys want to book a personal reading with me, or you want to learn astrology, check out my links below at beyondtheveiltarot.com. You guys can check out my study at your own pace programs, and all of the stuff that I offer in regards to astrology calendars and much, much more. Until next time, I'll see all of you guys very soon. Happy healing. Take care.